How's it going, guys? It's me, Zimzilla, back again, once again. I hope you all are having an exceptionally wonderful Wednesday night or Thursday. Maybe it's that time of day and it's already the next day over where y'all are. Either way, hello, welcome. So, what's the stream about? Well, I think Joe Smo said it perfectly. Also, Smo, new profile picture 84. Love to see it. And for anyone who doesn't know already, we do have Alamo Draft Houses are going to be showcasing Godzilla 84 on Godzilla Day, so that's going to be fun. I usually get that day, like a Monday's off, so I think I'll be able to go out and see that. But if not, I might ask my boss to be like, hey, can I definitely make sure I have that day off so I can go see it? Starting stream early, are we? Yeah, I'm happy that because I wasn't sure if I was going to do the stream tonight because YouTube was down for a little bit, but now that YouTube's back up, I was like, okay, perfect. So I don't have to worry about it. We can do it today. That makes tomorrow free for me to do other things, and I can just readjust my schedule accordingly because I do like the 3 upload schedule, especially because like I could do some Godzilla stuff one day, fan kaiju stuff another day, streams or whatever the next day, and yeah. Hello, hello. How's it going, Minecraft world? Oh my gosh, hi, it's Zimzilla. It's the Kaiju Knots. How's it going, my man? Save. But yeah, got 6 people viewing, one on Twitch. Hello to whoever it is on Twitch. Good to see you. Good to see you. But yeah, let's get this started. Of course, for those of you who are aware, I tried to do this for Zimcast 99, but I just didn't have the energy that day, and I really didn't have any other options to promote or push the stream to a different day. And because of that, it was kind of just chaos that day where anything and everything just kind of got thrown out the window when it came to a schedule. And that's sort of, it is what it is. I'm always happy to do fun things, kind of just go with the flow of the whims of chat and my viewers, as it were, which is always fun. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me and will continue to give me. But with all that being said, speaking of the support that y'all are giving me, there is one thing that I'm going to start to do when it comes to new things on the channel. And one of those is stream submissions, or really just art to start off the stream. And since this is sort of the test run for it, we'll do one piece from 3 people who submitted some things. And then as it goes, I'll probably do a YouTube post about this tomorrow for future streams to make it a little bit more structured, as it were. But yeah, so first things first, we have this commission piece of Nias. I forget who Minecraft said that it came from, but one thing I do say I love about this is how the artist does Nias's fur. I kind of do a similar thing. It's just super hard to have like really good line art and then trying to color fill properly. I just need to get better at doing that. But the dynamic pose is perfect. The use of the flames is awesome. It's just a really cool little piece right here. And Minecraft, you probably put in some good money for this piece because it was really nicely done. Next piece here is from Godzilla 2005, our debate opponent from the last stream. He did a little Godzilla piece. He sent me a bunch of pieces, so I only just wanted to go over one. And who better than to do obviously Godzilla himself? It's really obviously it's kind of squished here. But I really love the design of his head. I would love to see a more detailed version of this piece, like either having someone commission it and giving your thoughts 05 one way or the other about how a more detailed version of your Godzilla would look. But I just do like this little detail here with the head. The spines here are an interesting detail as well. And then Lau sent in a singular point Rodan piece. So we're seeing what the shadow Rodan kind of looks like. But I love this shot here with the little black sphere in the center here, and Rodan being half what is ostensibly bones and forming into the shadow Rodan that we know. But yeah, no, these are all really awesome pieces. And you said Minecraft, it was $30, and that's from Gazbot. Okay, awesome. That's really cool, man. Definitely worth it, I'd say. The Godzilla head design looks cool. Elements of the design look cool. I would like to see it fleshed out. Indeed, very much agreed there. I suck at drawing fur or hair. Hair is a little bit easier to do, especially just on people. But when it comes to like creatures, because you're trying to make a design that is like you can fill it with the color properly, you oftentimes want to either create the illusion of shaggy hair or hair that's coming off, and it's harder to do. I there's like one piece that I was really happy with its sketch, but then like doing what I can to make the design look good, fully like filled out with color has been a little bit of a challenge. And I put it on hold because I may redo the entire sketch purely so that I can better color fill everything because it looks fine. I could probably do some things to work around it, but I don't know. I'm a stickler for that kind of thing, and you are very much correct. Fur and hair are oftentimes hard to draw. Kairu, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. But yeah, so for anyone who is always interested, if you are in the Discord and you want to show something for the stream, I would love to see it, give some thoughts. I think probably for streams that are earlier in the day, we'll probably have people come on and talk about their piece. We'll see how long that goes for in terms of length. But I always like showcasing things from obviously the community itself that we're building here. Which, as always, if you want to join the Discord, I will put a link here in the description because that is going to be the easiest way to reach me, join these streams, things like that. I just am eternally grateful to everyone who comes on and listens to me ramble about Godzilla and other crazy kaiju things. The struggle having furry creatures, balancing the details to not make it look flat, but keep it in my simple style. Yes. Yes, exactly. Because I have a very jagged art style, and for things that have like almost loping kinds of hair, that's easy to do because you can do that in one stroke, and that's all gonna be one solid piece that you'll be able to fill in the color. But if you're doing things like the Nias design, we have these fine hairs that are kind of sticking out from the design to give it that fluffy appearance. That never is able to be a solid piece, or you have to make a solid piece and then do the hairs around it and try to blend it that way, which can work, but sometimes it is a pain to look good. But we'll start on this little thing here because actually starting the way we did, doing the little beforehand stream is that helped get us to the 10 minutes. I don't think I'm gonna swear all that much or go really off. Maybe it's just because I'm low energy and it was a crazy day at work tonight, but finishing what I started, and that is the US military, Godzilla and the Monsterverse, and then the other smaller per version, which I think is just the same video, but for completionism's sake, I wanted to do both videos. And if you saw the thumbnail there for the stream, Cheryl Honda, the creator of Godzilla, would most definitely approve. So for those of you who are not in the know, this video we had looked at a little bit on Zimcast 99. Didn't get to finish it, mostly because everyone's like, oh, this is boring. Let's move on to something else. And then just kind of descended into the chaos. But yeah, it's mostly AI. I don't think if someone wants my opinion about AI, it is that I think it is a useful tool. I don't believe it will replace real artists. I think it's a very good concepting tool, same way as tracing or photoshopping images for concepts. Those are good. But the big thing that comes into play is how AI is being trained. If it's being trained off of the work of other artists who do not know that's what's being trained to create these pieces, then that's where the issue comes into play. I believe that if you are making products or programs like AI art, then at least disclosing that or allowing artists to opt out of having people have their art be trained on AI software, I think is at least the least you can do. But I think maybe there's like some kind of moral gray area in that, or not, and just no one's legislated it, or no one's actually just brought it to a point where someone could get sued over it. But yeah, I think too, like, there's a lot of funny AI videos, and I think that a lot of people are making fun stuff with AI. That goes without saying. And for people who like lampoon stuff like that, it's like there's people who are making funny stuff before and after AI. I think that just the use of AI tools allows it to be done faster, but really some of it is purely slop, but in a funny sort of way where it is so outlandishly crazy that only someone who could make something out of AI where it's fast enough to get an actual quote unquote working product would make something like this. And to that, I say, hey, go off with it. It's fun. It's simple, but is it going to replace like TV shows, comedy, things like that? No, the technology is not there. And there are so many details that I don't think AI will ever be able to replicate. And I think that it would take so long for these programs to replicate all of the different styles and concepts that people come up with to where it could replace people's art. There is something to be said about everyone's art styles, and yeah, AI is not going to replace that. I think that if someone is using AI, especially if they're like a teenager, or they don't have a whole lot of time to really refine their skills as an artist and they get some kind of success off of that, then hey, there is nothing wrong with that. Like it it really seems like people are witch hunting it more than like is necessary. I think that yes, if people don't want like their voices used in AI, then I think that you should definitely like tell these companies or be like, hey, can you not? Or if it really gets to the point where someone is refusing to do that, then yes, suing is a possible thing, a possible tool that you can use. The problem is that there are too many people using AI as a crutch and as a lazy way of putting in some effort into one's work. Yes, I think that is very much true, and I think that in most cases, that's usually gonna show if someone is using AI to cut corners, but it still turns out bad, then the views will speak for themselves, and sort of the recognition they will get is will follow as well. Rob from 18 has been cooking some of his AI music videos, though. I have not. Like I like Rob. I haven't really followed any of his content recently. Like I've popped in a few streams here and there, but yeah, AI music videos. That's fine. I don't think that's gonna replace actual musicians. No way. Two examples are the Bigfoot and Yeti videos. Yeah, those are fun. And makes things look bland on par with corporate art styles. Here's the thing is that when I go to campus, there are Skechers posters like ads that you can tell are AI. And when I walked by them the first time, I was like, those like it looks really familiar. And I was wondering, I was like, oh, did like an artist I know recently get like a was like doing sketches art? But I'm like, no, it's just because it's AI. And as always, the telltale sign is with the hands. AI art is never really good with hands. Oh, the Baragon music video. I think I saw that. I didn't realize that was AI. I thought that well, he probably wrote all the lyrics, but the actual music is AI. Okay, I think I'd have to relook at that again, but I know exactly what you're talking about. AI artists, people using AI for art should pick up a pencil. Yeah, I think that's fair, but I don't fault them for it. Like, I'm not gonna like get up someone's balls for using AI unless like they're really hostile to people who are using like doing traditional means. Like, I think that like the immaturity on both sides is ridiculous. But I would say if someone was asked me, who do you think really started like this overt hostility? I think it was the people who are like actual artists being like, oh, who about AI artists. And to that, I say like, there is no need to feel threatened. There's no way these people are taking your jobs. You are very much secure in that. But for like people who like maybe the art isn't up to par, it may weed them out. But I would see that as more motivation to improve. Like anytime I see someone who's got really good art or really good animation, all that really says to me is I need to step up my game. Simple as. Like I'm not intimidated and I don't feel threatened by the encroachment of AI art. But we're obviously talking way too long, and O5 said it best. Let's begin the video. Yes, let's begin the video. And it already has me starting at 3 minutes. We'll just start from the beginning, and we'll do YouTubers on speed. There we go.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes those big, complex topics, digs through all the articles, the research, our notes, and basically pulls out the stuff you really need to know.
Yeah, the goal is simple. Get you informed quickly, but also hopefully share some things that make you go, huh, I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And today, we're diving into something huge, literally, the Monsterverse.
Oh, yeah. Godzilla, King Kong, those massive city smashing battles. Pure cinematic escapism, right?
That's what it looks like on the surface.
Yeah.
Big monsters, big explosions, fun stuff. But today, we're going to unpack that a bit because it's not just escapism.
Not entirely, because hiding underneath all those amazing special effects, the giant creatures, the pure mayhem, there's this surprisingly consistent presence.
You mean the U.S. military?
Precisely,
Yeah.
the strategic hand of the United States military. So today our deep dive is looking at every single way the legendary MonsterVerse films, starting from that 2014 Godzilla, were involved with. Or
Let's just go back real quick.
Way the legendary
So obviously this is formatted to be the like TikTok, YouTube Shorts setup, but the thing is 30 minutes. And it's little mistakes like that, which is why people take issues with AI art because and AI like productions, because you could tell that the AI art, it was easier to have a voice do all these lines, but then you do not like double check to make sure that if someone is viewing this, that they don't like these aren't cut off. Like for example, a lot of the shorts that I use, the subtitles, those are all AI generated in the sense that I'm not writing out those subtitles one by one. They're coming up on their own. But what I always want to do whenever I'm writing these is go through it to make sure that the lines actually match up, because there are certain cases where if I'm talking too fast, the AI, when it is doing the subtitles, it won't necessarily hear exactly what I'm saying quite right. Probably because I mispronounced something, or maybe I was just a little too far away from the mic, and it will miss those things in the subtitles. So as a result, when I'm reading it through, I will have to add in words or rewrite phrases because it completely missed something. And I think that if you're not using your own voice and you're not recording the scripts yourself, like just putting in a little bit of effort to make sure that these kinds of mistakes aren't there is the least you can do. And is it unfair that people who use AI will be criticized more for this? In some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. Like there's a big part of production that is being cut away because you're not having to record these lines; you're having a program do it. So there's that. But then also, it's like you could have the same mistake could have been done if someone was making this all by hand and not realizing it.
MonsterVerse films, starting from that 2014 Godzilla, were involved with, or affected by, or influenced by the U.S. military.
So we're not just asking if they were involved because, spoiler, they were.
Right. We're digging into the how. What specific changes got made to scripts? Why do some critics find certain portrayals, well, problematic?
And what does it all tell us about the deeper messages and maybe subtle stuff embedded in these massive blockbusters?
Exactly. Our mission for you, listening, is to get that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about how Hollywood's biggest monsters get shaped in part by the Pentagon.
And what that actually means when you sit down to watch. This is where it gets really interesting. Okay, so to really get a handle on the MonsterVerse's relationship with the U.S. military, we kind of have to rewind way back.
To the beginning, 1954, the original Japanese Godzilla.
Yeah, Gojira. And it wasn't just, a creature feature. Far from it.
Absolutely not. It was deeply, deeply political. It came directly out of Japan's horrific traumatic experience with nuclear weapons and nuclear testing.
Still very fresh wounds at that point.
Incredibly fresh. You had Hiroshima and Nagasaki less than a decade before in 45. And Japan was still grappling with the fallout, literally and metaphorically.
And the film wasn't just vaguely inspired by that, was it? There was a specific event.
There was. The U.S. nuclear tests on Bikini Atoll, which, you have to remember, felt geographically really close to Japan, much closer than to the U.S. mainland.
Right. And the specific incident. The fishing boat.
Yes, the Daigo Fukuri Maru, the Lucky Dragon number 5. On March 1st, 1954, just months before the film.
And of course, we're just kind of getting at a point where, like any video, they're just going over the basic information when it comes to Godzilla. But the premise is essentially Godzilla at its core is a deeply political film, which I think, yes, the film is a deeply political film. But what the implicit, underhanded assumption is that certain politics good, other politics bad. Art just looks so damn ugly. It's artificial to the point even the good art doesn't look appealing. I've seen some good art and I've seen some bad, but yes, for the most part, there is a certain consistency that it has. Like even in the case of this picture here, like how lights, how you see light affecting any detail on AI art. Like the best way to describe it is honestly just the uncanny valley. Like it looks realistic, but there is just something off about it that you can tell that it's not real and it's not like something in front of like it wasn't a picture taken. Info for normies. Yeah, no, it's essentially normie info.
came out. This boat got caught in the fallout from a U.S. hydrogen bomb test, the Castle Bravo test.
Oh, wow. So real people, real consequences.
Absolutely. The crew got acute radiation sickness. One crewman, Kubuyama Ikichi, died from it several months later. This wasn't an
I just want to go back real quick.
Absolutely. The crew got acute radiation sickness. One crewman, Kubuyama Ikichi, died from it
I think that is actually spelled right. So
several months later. This wasn't an abstract fear for the Japanese audience. It was a raw, recent, painful memory. It made Godzilla incredibly potent.
So Godzilla himself, he wasn't just a monster. He was the bomb, basically.
He was the embodiment of the harm from nuclear weapons. The concept was
just remember, guys, Godzilla is the bomb. Godzilla equals bomb. Godzilla plus tragedy equals bomb. But no, we'll put it like this. So Godzilla equals bomb in chat. There was that one new AI Godzilla piece, and I'd honestly say the design itself I think is cool. Sucks it's AI, but I want to try redrawing it. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, Vic. If you put it in general, and I will pull it up on stream actually.
was this peaceful ancient dinosaur sent on a rampage by the effects of radiation.
And that detail about his skin.
Yeah.
That's chilling.
It is. The production notes actually say his skin was meant to look like the keloid scars seen on Hiroshima survivors. A direct visceral link to the human suffering.
Wow. And the film didn't need to spell it out, did it?
No.
So that's another thing that people often forget is the fact that you have the three Godzilla designs, the warty fish Godzilla, and then the alligator Godzilla. And no, the skin looks like the keloid squaring, but that was never something intentional. It was always like it coincidentally looks like keloid scarring. And it's one of those cases where there's always a lot of conflicting information where people do cite that, yes, his skin was based on keloid scarring rather than it just so happened to look like it. And that's something you do wonder about, where when someone is looking at a film and there's so much deeper metatextual information that's being presented to you, and then you see a detail like this and it does line up, but then you realize, oh, it coincidentally does look like this. Does it add to the film that Godzilla's skin does look like keloid scarring? Yes. Was that ever the intention to begin with? No. So it's, as Bob Ross says, it's one of those happy accidents. And the reason why I feel it's important to bring this up is because not every decision that is made in a film is done with the express purpose of either the themes or this deeper thematic reasoning to it. Sometimes a red sash is just a red sash. There's no deeper meaning behind the green light, regardless of how many essays that you had to do in high school and college about it, or running into the field and catching kids like in Catcher in the Rye. But yeah.
America did this kind of thing.
No, it was subtle but incredibly powerful. It questioned humanity, creating the bomb without naming names. There's that scene, the woman asking, how could we create such a thing? That really captured the mood, the collective trauma.
And the director, Ishiro Honda.
There it is!
His own reason.
Such a thing. That really captured the mood, the collective trauma.
And the director, Ishiro Honda.
Ishiro is Cheryl Honda. No one asks, well, no, people clearly do ask, is Ishiro Honda? But no one asks, how is Ishiro Honda? But essentially, the one thing, there it is! So when it comes to Godzilla representing America, there is this Q&A that Shusuke Kaneko has in the definitive, like the Godzilla, the first 70 years book. So if you have it, go to page 311, and it's the Q&A, and the question is there something of a departure? This is something of a departure from prior interpretations. When Godzilla was said to specifically represent the atomic bomb, some critics, particularly in the US, have also interpreted Godzilla as representing America. And Kaneko's response was, the image of war is what is embodied in the original Godzilla, as well as the nuclear threat. Japanese people at the time never thought it was a reference to America. They only saw it as a representation of the atomic bomb. Now, of course, someone could argue, well, the bombs were dropped on Japan by who? So therefore, it obviously means America. But at the time, Japan is stuck between both the Soviets and the Americans, and America is occupying Japan as Japan recovers. So is it possible that, yes, America could drop another bomb on Japan? But at this point, it's not just the fact that the United States is creating nuclear weapons. There is this collective fear that yes, the Soviet Union, now becoming the second emerging superpower to rival the United States, could also create nuclear weapons, and that's why this fear is so potent, because Japan is obviously far closer to the USSR, a rival superpower who would want to possess nuclear capabilities next to the US. And if a war was to break out, Japan would be far closer to this threat than America would be. So it does make sense. But then it also adds to the idea a lot of people have about either Rodan or Anguirus being representation of the USSR. And I think that has more to do with the fact that because these two monsters in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, or Rodan itself, and then in Godzilla Raids Again, are these near rivals to Godzilla in power, and that mirrors this collective idea we have about the USSR and the US fighting in the Cold War. So I think that honestly, that interpretation, although I think it does make sense, but not intentional by the filmmakers about this US USSR dynamic with these other monsters, is interesting, although not necessarily the intent, unless like I could see evidence or like quotes saying otherwise from the directors.
He had his own reasons for that anti-war feeling.
Oh, profoundly so. He had strong personal anti-war views shaped by his own experiences. Multiple tours in the Imperial Japanese Army, saw terrible things, even managed a comfort station during the war.
Which says a lot about the costs of war.
It does, and crucially,
I think we covered this, and this is about where we had stopped last time in Zimcast 99. I appreciate the fact that they don't really dwell on like Honda's morality or him as a person because of the comfort station. I remember one YouTuber and a lot of Twitter folk really, really harped on the whole Honda was a part of a comfort station. And I think the thing too is that like they don't really delve into it, so it feels almost like a hey, here's a little fun trivia fact rather than like giving your thoughts, talking about it, and then moving on. Like there's I think an important balance to be made, and I guess like I'd prefer them specifically mentioning it and then moving away from it rather than like really going deeply into it and going on a tirade about like only the victims can really judge Honda in a case like this. And I don't know. It's any time you delve into politics of this kind. Every time I see an AI kaiju piece, I redesign them to look better. I pretty much know when an AI was used for Godzilla designs now. Yeah, but that also just comes down to AI art as well. It's actually decently cool. It's like a mix of Heisei Monsterverse. Oh, you post in general? Thank you. So we'll probably post that up in a second after we go through this video.
he saw Hiroshima after the bombing. That devastation stayed with him. All of that fed into the film's really somber tone, its plea for disarmament. It was a warning.
So in that original film, with that heavy message, what about the military? The Japanese military, the self-defense forces, were they the heroes?
Not even close. Actually, quite the opposite. They were shown as, frankly, ineffective, completely outmatched.
If they're the opposite of the heroes, that would make them either the villains or at least the antagonists. So that's not really the opposite. They're just another force within the film trying to stop Godzilla. If anything, they could have been set up as villains, like as like antagonists towards Yamane, but I think his position isn't particularly fleshed out in terms of his dynamic with them. But no, they aren't the opposite of the heroes. They're just people in Japan and having to deal with this. If anything, yeah, they would still be seen as the heroes, because even if they are completely ineffective and outmatched, that doesn't make them not heroes. That just makes them overwhelmed heroes, or at least tragic heroes, because it is the self-defense force that ultimately is holding the line to protect lives.
Really, like tanks and stuff?
Yeah, you see tanks firing shells that just bounce off them, electric fences, useless, frigates, swatted away like toys, nothing worked. In fact, trying to fight...
We actually never see any naval combat in 54, so that's not even true.
Him often just made things worse, caused more damage.
So Godzilla was just beyond them.
Exactly. A force beyond what man can or should handle. A direct consequence of playing with nuclear fire, which is, as you'll see, a very different portrayal from the later American films.
And the solution wasn't military either, right? It was something else.
Right. It was Dr. Serizawa and his oxygen destroyer. This weapon described as far more deadly and powerful than the nuclear bomb.
Okay, so a super weapon. But he didn't want to use it.
That's the key. He refused. He was terrified of its implications. What humanity might do with something even worse than the bomb. He saw the potential for an even greater cycle of destruction.
So he destroyed it.
Yeah.
And himself.
He destroyed his research, yes, and sacrificed his own life to make sure nobody could replicate it. It wasn't about winning with a bigger stick. It was about breaking the cycle of violence. A profound anti-war statement about sacrifice over power. Very different vibe from your typical blockbuster climax.
Well, also, that could be argued too. And I think that this is what's interesting in retrospect when you're looking at Serizawa's character is that he does very much mirror Oppenheimer in the sense of this war going on, and one way to end it isn't just a bigger stick. It is in order to save as many lives as possible. I think that is, having read several other books on the topic of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's not just a desire to kill more Japanese, as some people would like you to believe. It has everything to do with trying to create a big enough event in order to save as many lives as possible and to end the war. And similarly to how Serizawa wrestles with the destructive power of his creation, Oppenheimer as well also struggled with the creation of the bomb. And I think that's something that is interesting because it allows the Japanese to almost not necessarily like overtly, but in a way understand the perspective someone like Oppenheimer would have had wrestling with a new weapon like the bomb, which I'm not saying that in this case, yes, Japan is just like Godzilla in that sense, although someone could probably make the argument. I don't think that's the case, but yeah, I think that is at least something to consider. And kind of people don't really seem to ever consider this. I know Demon's really the only one I've seen in the community who's ever talked about this angle to Serizawa's character. This is just a narration of what happened in Gojo 54 so far, except much more boring than the one we were to just watch Man, I'm just terrible today. This is just a narration of what happened in Gojo in 1954 so far, except much more boring than if one were to just watch the film. Yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of videos want to just give you a plot synopsis because that does pad out the runtime in a lot of ways. But we're only 5 minutes in, and I don't think it goes on for much longer. So 5 minutes of a 30-minute video, it's not like it's like padding the runtime there.
Absolutely. Which brings us neatly to how the U.S. military interacts with Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because that kind of message, military incompetence, anti-war sacrifice, is probably not what they want highlighted.
Definitely not. And this relationship, it's not new. The U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, started formalizing things with Hollywood way back in the mid-1940s, right after World War II.
Why that?
Strategic move. Shape public perception, keep support for the military going in peacetime. And their support was, and is, huge. Massive support for big budget productions.
What kind of support are we talking?
Lending incredibly expensive gear, aircraft carriers, active ones, helicopters, planes, tanks, stuff studios just couldn't afford or easily replicate. And crucially, offering advice and rewrites on scripts.
Ah, so not just props and locations, actual input on the story. Script doctors from the Pentagon.
Pretty much.
It's interesting that they talk about this when the only reason why G-Force exists in the way it does in the later Versus films is due to the JSDF opting out of helping with future productions because of their portrayal in Godzilla vs. Mothra. So even like way before even Godzilla 98, you have the JSDF being very upset that they were portrayed as slightly evil for attacking the good monster in Mothra, and that caused them to pull out of future Godzilla productions from there going on. So, like, if we're to say, oh, well, the Pentagon script doctors everything, unless you want to see, if you want to see like our equipment, you're gonna have to do this, this, and that. The JSDF does this as well. So does almost any military of any nation. So the idea that the US is uniquely evil or uniquely special in how it conducts itself with its military is laughable, to say the least. And I would respect this video more if it would also mention that aspect about the JSDF.
They act as consultants, and they have very specific criteria for giving this help. It's not a free-for-all.
Okay, so what are the rules? What does the film have to do to get that carrier access?
Well, according to their own liaison, Phil Strub, and the official DoD instruction 5410.16, first, the film has to spit shine the military's image.
Spit shine. So make them look good.
Exactly. Present a reasonably realistic depiction, but one that contributes to public understanding in a positive way. And, very explicitly, it needs to benefit recruiting and retention programs.
Recruiting, so they see it as a tool for that.
Directly. Strub mentioned films like Captain Phillips or Man of Steel as wins, showing the Navy's professionalism, the Air Force's power, potentially drawing people in.
Okay, so that's what they want. What about what they don't want? The red lines. The censorship.
Oh, there are definite red lines. They have what's described as a filtration system. They will reject films showing things like torture. That was an issue with Zero Dark 30's script, apparently.
Okay, makes sense.
Or anything
And Zero Dark 30 still came out.
Suggesting mutiny or serious insubordination, which is why Crimson Tide didn't get cooperation. Basically, anything that makes them look like they're bad guys.
Let me look up Crimson Tide because I think it is the film that I am mentioning. Or not mentioning, at least I'm thinking of, that I wanted to talk about. Crimson Tide. Yes, it is Crimson Tide that I'm talking about. So, here's the thing. If you are very well informed about the inner workings of the military and you have the means to create the sets for the military, you do not necessarily need the Pentagon's involvement in the script. Like Crimson Tide is a very good film. And earlier they said that the like Hollywood wouldn't have something like mutiny or anything having to do to criticize the United States military, but they mentioned Crimson Tide that literally does that. With Zero Dark 30. Another one too. It's not a movie, but their Generation Kill is a huge example that I point to when it comes to a TV series where it is considered by anyone who is in the military to be like one of the most accurate portrayals of the military. And let me, because I just realized it's not letting me move over to all the other tabs. So let's go back. Yes. So this is the film I talk about, Crimson Tide, because I remember there was a film about like a mutiny and it was Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington. Really good film. I do recommend it. But yeah, Generation Kill came out in 2008. Very accurate portrayal of the military. For example, Rudy Reyes, he is actually one of the people, he plays himself in Generation Kill. Super awesome show. Here's a few places that you can watch it. And it essentially does, it criticizes the war in Iraq in very not subtle ways at all. Like it is very on the nose about a lot of things because it is essentially a retelling of the book by Evan Wright. So there is that. Like the military does not necessarily need to be involved for you to make a good military story, although it is recommended primarily because of the fact that it makes things seem more authentic because you'll have those people on the ground who are able to help in a case like that. But it's not needed. But yeah, there's definitely many cases in Hollywood or at least American television about criticisms of the military. It's just not criticism of the military that a lot of people want or think is actually proper. Well, here's the thing: is like a lot of people, especially paleos, think that primitive war doesn't criticize the military enough, or is Vietnam War apologia, which isn't the case. It's just they hate the U.S. and they hate the United States military and see it in a very specific way. So, let's get back to the video.
Guys,
Or reveals uncomfortable truths.
that's the crux of it. Critics argue it's about preventing anything that reveals the tangle of lies that is United States foreign policy, especially avoiding U.S. historical controversies.
Like Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
That's a big one. Very sensitive. They want to control the narrative, keep the image clean.
It really does sound like a Faustian bargain for the studios.
It kind of is. They save, sources say, a couple $1 million, maybe more, on hardware. They get amazing wonderful cinematic images, authenticity, production value.
But the price.
The price is signing contracts, agreeing to not oppose the interests of the U.S. government. It becomes this mutually beneficial relationship between the means of making war spectacles and the means of making war.
Which ties into that idea. The Noam Chomsky's thing.
Manufacture of consent.
No.
Yeah.
Chomsky mentioned that's always wonderful. But yeah, like all these are very wonderful big words, but actually presenting them or giving specific examples would go a long way in actually proving the point being made. Because again, there are dozens of examples where Hollywood, without the help of the US military, is able to present the military in ways that are both accurate, but also criticize the United States where it is appropriate. But I think when people say that these films, or at least Hollywood as a business, does not actually oppose the lies of the US foreign policy, it's mostly because it doesn't align particularly with my political views, and that's what's going on in a lot of cases.
The idea that propaganda in democracies isn't always overt. It's often subtle, shaping perceptions without people realizing. Hollywood, in this view, shoves militaristic ideology down the throats of moviegoers.
Projecting heroism to cover up the realities of war.
Exactly. And it's not always, a smoke-filled room conspiracy.
Let me go back real quick.
Projecting heroism to
Hollywood, in this view, shoves militaristic ideology down the throats of moviegoers.
projecting heroism to
So projecting heroism. So the thing with that too is that it could be argued very much that the opposite is true, where there are definitely other agendas in Hollywood who do not want to paint the military in a good light either. And everything that is being said here could just as easily be applied to other people in their own ideas about what should be done about the military, what should be said about the military. And I think that in a lot of cases, there's a lot that the military gets wrong, a lot that the government gets wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes, the same people who talk about quote unquote militaristic ideologies, setting agendas, propaganda, are the first people to go up to a specific person, a specific soldier, etc., and call them an awful person because of the institution that they're a part of. And I find that to be just overall disgusting in a lot of cases. Based. But yeah, we know we do not, we paleos, total paleo death. I've said this before and I'll say it here too. Top Gun Maverick isn't good because it's military propaganda. It's good because it's well made. Yeah, well, I mean, that's also not mutually exclusive either. You could say it's both military propaganda and it's well made, but yeah, no. I think that a lot of people will say like, oh, agenda this, agenda that, but yeah, no, everyone has an agenda, and especially if someone is to say, for example, all art is political, then everyone's got some kind of political bent that they're going to want to portray in their art.
Cover up the realities of war.
Exactly. And it's not always, a smoke-filled room conspiracy. It's
And like to add to that, there is heroism in war. Like there are people who do like crazy things in order to protect like loved ones or protect their comrades, or even do things for like people they've only known maybe a couple days, couple weeks, wherever they're at. Like there are genuinely heroic things that people in the military do, and the idea is projecting heroism. Yeah, because probably some of those things did happen.
often described as more decentralized, almost a natural phenomenon, because Hollywood often has this general reverence toward the military anyway.
So the system kind of perpetuates itself. Pro-military blockbusters lead to more pro-military blockbusters.
That's the dynamic. It's an institutional alignment where everyone seems to benefit, except perhaps, nuanced critical perspectives.
Okay, so with all that context,
Except again, you have things like Generation Kill, you have things like Crimson Tide, video games that also go over this, other TV shows, other movies. I want to say it's like Camp Candish. Candish. And I may be getting that wrong. Let me, because I actually got onto it because of another person, another YouTube channel, Almighty Lowly. I love his videos. Guy does amazing work, and I love a lot of things that he recommends. And like he says, he puts in some good kino from Lolly. There it is. Now I just need to remember what the name of it is. Yeah, no, not Camp Candish. Restrepo and Korngal. Those are two really good films that I'd recommend anyone watching if they want not an accurate portrayal of the military, but also one that criticizes it in ways that I feel are legitimate and make sense. If you want something that is pure fiction, but it really goes into the realities of war, but it doesn't feel like it's preaching to you, Black Powder, Red Earth. That series is another one that I do recommend. What now? What did he say? World War II alone is a prime example of this. I assume there's so many individual soldiers and figures whose actions are films in and of themselves. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that goes without saying for like any war. Like there are crazy stories across every kind of war in any place. You can simply not how the military evolved during movie production. You can. I think that in a lot of cases, it does end up with a portrayal of the military that is oftentimes more politically or ideologically in line with what you want them to be, and that can lead to some inaccuracies. Like I know there was one film, I know the guy who plays Falcon and the guy who plays Hawkeye, they're in it. Jeremy Renner. And what is Hawkeye's actor? Movies. I think it's Hurt Locker. Yeah, it's Hurt Locker, where there's a few things that are just like small details that if you're not in the military, you won't see them. But then there's other things, because I know Hawkeye's actor slaps or like smacks Renner because he turns off his comms. Like that's never gonna happen in like a military setting, probably, but it is things like that that are done for dramatic effect, but they do take away from the realism. So there's a level of verisimilitude that I believe is important for a film, and it also depends on the audience that you're trying to pull. Like if you want to pull a general audience to a certain degree, but also like military, like people who've been in the military in a show for people in the military, then you're gonna want something like Generation Kill. But if you don't really care too much about the accuracy and you really care more about the dramatic beats that occur and to have those highs and have those lows, then you're gonna want something more like The Hurt Locker.
The original's message, the DoD's playbook. Let's finally stomp into the MonsterVerse proper. Godzilla 2014. This was a big one for military collaboration, wasn't it? A really deep partnership.
Oh, absolutely huge. Far beyond just, hey, can we borrow a helicopter? The DoD openly reviewed the Godzilla script. They provided experts to ensure the military portrayal was accurate, or rather accurate in the way they wanted it shown.
And the hardware access was significant.
Immense. Filming on 3 active aircraft carriers. The Ronald Reagan, the Carl Vinson, the Nimitz. That level of access is extraordinary for a movie.
Wow. 3 carriers.
And you had like over 3 dozen credited military officials involved. Consultants, liaisons, advisors, making sure the uniforms look right, the tactics seem plausible, and crucially that the overall image aligned with DoD goals. It was a full court press.
And it wasn't just about making the movie look cool, was it? They were pretty open about the recruitment angle.
Completely open. Phil Coons from the DoD stated their intent clearly. It was about educating and informing the American public, showing how we respond to a crisis.
And he had that quote about teenagers.
Yeah.
So that first part there, that they wanted to talk about like how the military respond to a crisis, and overall, that is one thing I do like about 2014 is that attention to detail makes sense, and how the military would deal with a crisis like Godzilla also makes sense. And I believe that for a more grounded Godzilla movie like that, that kind of cooperation I think is crucial, whether it's the United States military, the DoD, or the JSDF. I believe in order to portray Godzilla in a way that gives that kind of reverence and really makes you feel for the people on the ground, then yeah, that's very important. And whether the military wants to recruit me or not, I believe that is ultimately irrelevant, especially when it comes to what the art is portraying. And as they say with agendas, there's going to be 1,001 agendas for everyone who's working on this project. And I believe for Gareth Edwards, I would, unless he said otherwise, I doubt that he'd be the one to be like, yes, I made a film about crisis and feature the military heavily because I want to recruit for them, because I want to do the war crimes in the Middle East, guys.
Hoping the target demographic 14 to 18-year-olds would leave thinking, and this is a direct quote, I never knew the Navy was such a sophisticated professional organization. I really want to go explore it.
Wow.
I have a few friends who are from the Navy, and yeah, no, it is definitely not the case. But even if someone like a 14 or an 18-year-old is gonna think from specifically a Godzilla film, wow, the military is so organized and well thought out, does the person behind the channel really think that that 14 or 18-year-old is not going to do like their own research, ask their parents, think about this decision, and maybe they won't, maybe they will, but there is so much about like the actual Navy or just any branch in general that you will have so many conflicting ideas, stories, and understanding of what goes on in the military, to the point where one film may be the catalyst for where you end up, but it is not going to be the end all be all to your conception of anything and everything. As a paleo? As a paleo, I agreed. For accuracy, you can do more research. Yeah, but you're even with more research, you're not always going to get everything right unless like you're around military personnel and things like that. We need more sergeant officers, O'Neill's. Oh, O'Neill. He's a sergeant, but he acts like a lieutenant.
Just straight up saying it. Use the blockbuster to get kids interested in signing up.
It was a very clear, very deliberate recruitment strategy, leveraging the movie's spectacle.
Which is just worlds away from Ishiro Honda's original vision. So how did all that military involvement and the recruitment goal actually change?
But it's interesting, too, because they don't even mention what Gareth Edwards' thoughts are on it, but just the DOD's. When, if you think about it, you have Honda, Tanaka, Kayama, Eiji Tsuburaya all having their own ideas that they wanted to implement onto Godzilla, but in 2014's case, they completely forgo what Gareth Edwards' vision for it was, considering the fact that he's making the first Godzilla film in America since 98.
Change the story, the history, in the 2014 film.
The shifts were massive. Remember how the Japanese military was useless in the original? Here, the US military is integral to the fight. They're not just window dressing or cannon fodder. They are the heroes.
Right, like
They're definitely cannon fodder, because you have all the guys who die in the train ride to get the bomb, because Ford's the only one who survives that. You have the jets who all die, like those fighter jets who die. The sub that gets dragged ashore by the Mito, all those military personnel died. The helicopter that was shooting at the Mito, Godzilla clips them and they die. Any personnel in 2014's like the climax of that fight, they all die except for Ford. So I wouldn't say they are definitely, whose side are they? Like, what do you mean by heroes? What does that mean? Like, are they aligned with the protagonist, which is Ford, who is in the military? Yes, I would say like the only hero military guy of the movie is Ford, but so many people criticizing 2014 have argued that, yeah, Ford is a fairly boring character. And it's not just because of the fact that he's a boring military man, it's that he is a stock Hollywood idea of a military man rather than like the kind of guy you'd actually see in the military.
the main character, Ford Brody, Navy guy.
Exactly. LT Ford Brody, an EOD tech explosive ordnance disposal. He doesn't run away. He makes a conscious decision to stay and fight and protect and defend the citizens. His bravery.
Well, to defend the citizens and more specifically defend his wife and child who are in the city that the monsters are converging on. So, and yeah, let's just hear what they say.
His competence, it's central. The military is shown as essential, capable, morally right.
Okay, so the military.
But also essential, capable, morally right. What other institution would be in charge of trying to defend against something like Godzilla? And once again, they aren't very effective because the military loses all of the nuclear weapons. They do nothing to stop Godzilla from destroying the Golden Gate Bridge. Like, how are they more effective than what you see in 54? If anything, they screw up way worse than 54 because they almost let a nuke go off next to a major population center.
Military role is flipped. What about the nuclear stuff? The core of the original's allegory.
This is where it gets really, really different ideologically. The film opens with actual historical footage, Operation Crossroads Baker, the 1946 Bikini Atoll tests. Iconic, chilling footage.
But they don't use it as a warning.
Not at all. It's basically just used for special effects, mixed in with CGI mushroom clouds. It completely obscures the original meanings. It detaches the image from the history, the horror.
And then the plot itself uses nukes differently.
Radically differently. There's a plot point where they literally try to bait Godzilla out with a nuclear weapon. And later, nuclear energy is sort of what empowers him. It transforms the bomb from this symbol of ultimate terror into a monster-destroying weapon, a tool.
Well, yeah, bombs are they're nuclear weapons. Godzilla feeds off nuclear energy, so yeah, it does check out that Godzilla would be powered up by nuclear energy from any source, nukes regardless. But again, they have the idea, let's nuke the monsters, and the one character that everyone latched onto besides from Bryan Cranston's character is literally like, yeah, no, this is a terrible idea. Here is a watch showing you this was a terrible idea that comes from Hiroshima. So yeah, it's almost like they didn't watch the movie, or they watched the movie and explicitly want to go on this idea that, yeah, U.S. military, explicitly U.S., and therefore U.S. military bad.
Tool, maybe even a necessary evil, a savior.
It's like that line from Dr. Strangelove almost. Learn to love the bomb.
The implication, critics argue, is exactly that. America should learn to love the bomb because it will save our country. It's a complete 180 from the original's message.
That's quite a rewrite of history and symbol.
But that's also a rewrite of the film itself, because the bomb going off is a major plot point, and if you look at the film objectively, is a major screw up of the U.S. military, because what they should have done was actually assist Godzilla in fighting the Mutos, because had they done that, they probably would have done a better job and saved more lives. So they had to put their trust in Godzilla, which in this case, I will argue that Godzilla not being the result of nuclear weapons tests and instead a creature that they try to kill does in a way make the U.S. military more evil. So that does put them more into question, because they try to literally kill the balance of nature. But still, I think with Godzilla, he almost always should be the product of nuclear weapons and be a mutation from that rather than a creature that has existed before the introduction of nuclear weapons. All he did really was destroy the Mito's eggs and try to move the bomb away from the city, but that's about it. Godzilla did most of the work, honestly. Yeah, that's true. This is the same BS that dumbasses of Twitter have been saying about primitive war. Exactly. Is this just about 2014? Really, I think it is because I don't know how much involvement the DoD has post 2014, but the military becomes less and less of a like a force outside of really Kong Skull Island, which I think they do bring up.
Symbolism. And you mentioned censorship earlier. Was there direct censorship in the 2014 film related to the nuclear history, specifically with Serizawa?
Yes, a very significant change.
Oh wait,
Teen film related to the nuclear history, specifically with
Serizawa, not Serizawa, Serizawa. So if someone in Discord, if one of y'all can do a female Dr. Serizawa as Serizawa, that would be great. Like that is to use a line from all the other woke the anti-woke YouTubers. Man, the new Godzilla is totally woke. They have a female Serizawa. It might as well be Serizawa.
Serizawa.
Yes, a very significant change. Dr. Serizawa, Ken Watanabe's character, is named in homage.
Wait, no, they do it. Oh, that's even weird. Wait, watch this.
Specifically with
Serizawa.
Yes, a very significant change.
Dr. Serizawa
Ken Watanabe.
Watanabe. Again, like if you're using AI and then you have AI subtitles, just read through the scripts because then you'll catch things like this. So we have is Cheryl Honda, and now we have Ken Watanabe and Serizawa.
His character is named in homage to the original scientist, and originally he apparently had this powerful speech connecting to his father's direct experience with the atomic bomb, a link to that real trauma.
But the DoD didn't like that.
It was considered a showstopper, a hard no, it needs to be removed. That's what the reports say. Why? Because it touched on that forbidden topic. U.S. historical controversy, Hiroshima, the bombings.
So what did they change it to?
It became this much more generic, vague discussion about man's inhumanity to man. All the specific historical weight, the direct criticism was just erased, watered down to...
I would be actually... I don't remember if we actually know what those lines are off the top of my head, but I'd be very interested to see what the lines are, because it is man's inhumanity to man, and them still bringing up Hiroshima is still present in the film. But what's interesting is that in the original scripts that Gareth was like probably okay with, that the DoD wasn't, is directly talking about these topics that are covered up. And the fact that they don't give credit to Gareth Edwards for wanting to cover things like this says a lot, because it's essentially lumping in Gareth Edwards with the DoD rather than being like, hey, Gareth Edwards probably wanted to change things. DoD said no. And, considering that they want these nuanced discussions, I feel like that is important for a topic like this. Yes, Serizawa.
To nothing.
Which fits their policy of keeping a lid on that history.
Exactly. Avoid anything that might make people question the past or the official narrative.
So, historical footage repurposed, dialogue censored. What about the actual impact of nukes? The fallout.
Also sanitized. The film ends with a nuke going off in the ocean, right? Pretty close to San Francisco, like 15 minutes by boat off the shore.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what happens next? Basically nothing. Everyone is happy at the end. There's zero mention of fallout, radiation, environmental disaster, nothing. It just detonates, problem solved, roll credits.
Which is not how nuclear bombs work.
Not even remotely. It's a complete sanitization of the consequences.
Yeah, I think that is a problem with 2014. I think that the filmmakers didn't realize that there was no way they could get that bomb that far out in order for there to be reduced fallout from a nuke, especially when they try to hype up these bombs. So I think that they came up with a solution to the problem. In reality, the solution doesn't actually stop the problem, but you could also just I bet some of them were thinking oh, Godzilla absorbs radiation, so he absorbed all the radiation, so that's why there's no fallout there. But I think that's just the nature of 2014, and some of the things are very messy about that film.
Consequence-free nuclear explosion. It's deeply problematic from a scientific and historical standpoint.
So, okay, some people did say the military looked kind of helpless or stupid at times, right? Like with the MUTOs and their EMP powers messing up all the...
Wait.
People did say the military looked kind of helpless or stupid at times, right? Like with the MUTOs and their EMP...
MUTOs. I mean, I understand it's an acronym, but MUTOs.
Powers messing up all the tech.
Yeah, there were moments where the tech failed, where they seemed outmatched by the MUTO's specific abilities. That's true.
But the overall takeaway was a military failure.
Critics argue no. Despite those moments...
Well, the critics are wrong, simple as.
The film's constant visual barrage of fighter jets, tanks, ships, the focus on Brody's heroism, the sheer presence of the military...
Jets and tanks. Jets first used, they fail. Helicopter fighting Muto. Godzilla clips him and kills him. The Godzilla literally swimming between two aircraft carriers lift him creating this tidal wave and just brushing them aside. Same thing with the other battleships near the Golden Gate Bridge. The closest we get to the military actually being effective is hitting him in the gills and him just barreling through a landmark and them not being able to do anything about it. Yeah, no, the military is constantly shown to be ineffective, which is why Sten's like, this Alpha Predator of yours, does he really stand a chance? And that's why we get the let them fight comment.
throughout, it still served to glamorize them.
Still reinforce their necessity, their moral rightness.
That's the argument, that it asserted the
Again, the necessity. So in this case, my question is, who would be primarily tasked with protecting civilians on the ground if Godzilla was to come to a major like a major population center or like a major landmark where there's civilians present? It's going to be police and the military, the two factions that people often want to hate on. Schrodinger's nuance, wanting nuance until you actually have a nuanced discussion, or wanting to have a nuanced discussion and then avoiding nuance because it doesn't serve the political agenda as you criticize the idea of political agendas. I always figured that Godzilla just soaked everything up when he was taking his cat nap. It's possible, but it may have been the intention, may not. I won't say one way or the other. That, or they were like, oh, well, the bomb went off a good distance away from the sea. They should be fine. That's probably the case. That's more than likely the case. But then realizing, yeah, nope, no, the scale of a nuclear weapon like that, there's no way.
the moral right of U.S. military expansionism by showing them as the indispensable protectors, the only ones who could fight back, even if imperfectly.
So military expansionism. Like, I just want to see what comes up. The thing that comes up is a policy of extending a nation's power and influence towards the use of military force, territorial acquisition, or the establishment of military bases. Well, we already have bases in Hawaii. The Mito comes to Hawaii, so does Godzilla. So in this case, the U.S. is just protecting its interests there. Monarch is a multinational, though it's essentially just U.S. based. Although at the time of the 2014 era, you have it being like a joint Japan-American. So it's let's just say it is the U.S. overstepping its borders, where though in this case Monarch doesn't have really any military capabilities, essentially has to use the military for joyrides. But again, neither comes to Hawaii, so they're acting within the interest of protecting their borders, as they already are at this point. Military force, yes, we have monsters attacking and planning to expand and therefore take over the planet, but let's just say trying to take over the US because they're building their nest in the US. It is the use of military force to defend from a hostile force, and territorial acquisition not even relevant. I know I'm not sharing the screen, but I think that speaks for itself. Anyone can look up what military expansionism is, but it doesn't really apply here.
The original's meaning, Godzilla as a manifestation of fears, an important moment in history, that got lost.
Critics would say yes. It became less an allegory, more a blockbuster for millions of Americans to see in order to push their agenda. A vehicle for a pro-military message, wrapped in monster movie spectacle.
Okay, let's shift gears to the next big one.
Yeah, but I guess like the pro-military message is expansionism, when that just really isn't the case.
Kong, Skull Island in 2017. This felt different, tonally, thematically. It wasn't really about nukes, was it?
Not at all. Kong took a sharp turn. It was deliberately conceived as a fusion of the King Kong mythos with Vietnam War films. Think apocalypse. Not at all. Kong took a sharp turn. It was deliberately conceived as a fusion of the King Kong mythos.
Misos. It's like miso soup. Misos.
With Vietnam War films. Think Apocalypse Now, but with giant monsters.
Right, I remember that vibe. Much more cynical, kind of gritty.
Exactly.
Wait, cynical, gritty, almost anti-military. A big blockbuster being anti-military? Wow.
It was reflecting on a different kind of anxiety, not nuclear annihilation, but maybe the decline of U.S. hegemony.
Mhm.
The ghost.
Well, Godzilla's not even in this, so like I understand the U.S. and the Monsterverse, but this has nothing to do with Godzilla, really.
Failed interventions. It used allegory, but a completely different one.
So if it's a Vietnam allegory, Skull Island itself is Vietnam.
That's the clear setup. The film portrays Skull Island as this place invaded by American forces. They arrive with little understanding of their opponents, the creatures, the environment, the local people.
And they're pretty destructive.
Recklessly so. They come in dropping seismic charges, using napalm, a callous attitude towards the locals, carrying out their mission with recklessly destructive abandon. It directly mirrors critiques of U.S. actions in Vietnam.
And Kong. Who is he in this metaphor?
Kong becomes a symbol of the Viet Cong, essentially.
And when you look up, like, does Kong represent the Viet Cong? And yeah, no, that's not the case. Like, there's nowhere where they say that he is explicitly supposed to be the Viet Cong. And yes, when it comes to the Viet Cong, the idea of wanting personal determination for your own country, yes, that makes sense. Killing and executing your own countrymen, like that famous. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so I guess graphic warning for anyone who is going to be watching this. So let me pull this up real quick. Yeah, so it's this shot here of this one member of the Viet Cong who is executed, and like a lot of people took this to be a huge issue, or at least a overstepping of the U.S. in when it intervened in Vietnam, except for the fact that that one guy who is being executed was literally found beside a mass grave of civilians that he and other Viet Cong had killed, and I believe the person who took that photo, the issue that he took with it is that you only see that one picture there and don't understand the greater context and therefore the greater nuance behind what was going on in Vietnam at the time. But let's keep going. Goji Twitter. Yeah, well, no, that's just X Twitter in a nutshell. In certain ways, it's gotten better. In other ways, it's gotten worse. As well as also, again, Apocalypse Now, a film criticizing the United States military and its actions in Vietnam, but was allowed to be shown on the air. And in some ways, for certain people, it was why they wanted to join up in the military. So
He's the powerful native force acting defensively against this intruding outside force. He's protecting his home from these destructive invaders.
Were there specific lines or characters that really drove that critique home?
Oh, yeah. Colonel Packard, Samuel L. Jackson's character, the commander, he has that line, full of bitterness. We didn't lose the war, we abandoned it. That really taps into a specific post-Vietnam sentiment.
And the guy who'd been there for years?
Yeah.
John C. Reilly's character.
King Marlowe? Yeah,
well,
Colonel Packard, Samuel L. Jackson's character, the commander, he has that line, full of bitterness. We didn't lose the war, we abandoned it. That really...
Yeah, well, when you're looking statistically at what was happening, the support for Vietnam is it's being sapped out of the American people, and you have a lot of people who are being drafted into Vietnam. They're not being cycled out properly. There's a lot of death, a lot of destruction, and because of that, all of the support, you're seeing things on the news which you're getting some context, but not the full context for. So yeah, support for Vietnam is lost, and that's why the U.S. pulls out of Vietnam. And for someone who's probably witnessed like hundreds, or not maybe hundreds, but like a lot of his men die, people who were drafted in who didn't even want to be there die, it would make sense for a character like that to feel the way he is, because ultimately, and this is the one thing that I think is I like about Packard's character, but I also dislike because I don't feel like they really delve into this about him, that he would have this kind of sentiment, especially when if he's been as a commanding officer seeing so many of these people die, and now he realizes he has to go home. What do those deaths mean for him? Like, he probably had to send people on missions that they never came back from, and then he finds out that, yeah, no, we're pulling out. Mission wasn't successful, and therefore that means like the people that he had to watch die or hear about die, they all died for a cause that wasn't fulfilled. And that's, I think, a tragedy behind his character. But they essentially turned Packard into a two-dimensional bad guy who's like, oh, he's like the mean general man of like who just wants to fight things. And like another thing as well is that when he sees Kong killing the rest of his group of men, I bet he feels personally responsible, because had he not accepted this mission, then they wouldn't have been in the situation that they were. Like, they were doing exactly what they were told to do, and it sucks. Like, there's no way, especially from the perspective of people in this universe, monsters are being covered up. They would have no idea that there'd be giant monsters there, that there'd be an ape that defies the square cube law in this environment that they're coming into. And I believe that John Goodman's character, when he pulls the pistol up to him, I think he is completely justified in doing that, because he got Monarch's actions ultimately lead to the deaths of these men.
taps into a specific post-Vietnam sentiment.
And the guy who'd been there for years,
Yeah.
John C. Reilly's character.
Hank Marlowe? Yeah, the WWII pilot who crashed there decades earlier. He made friends with
WWI pilot.
Japanese pilot, lived with the natives. He's the voice of caution, urging non-interference. He even suggests WWII offered a non-heeded lesson, a chance to pursue peace that was missed. He's directly questioning the gung-ho military approach.
Well, that's interesting because he's a person who is put into an extreme situation with the enemy and is allowed to at least be separated from the war and the politics in order to have this friendship. Like, could it have been that he would be near a soldier that wouldn't have had peace any other way? It's possible, but that would also mean he'd be buying into the Axis propaganda if Hank Marlowe was one pursuing peace. But also, it does speak to something where there is a sentiment we have about World War II, the World War II consensus, that it's the last good war we have. And a lot of people sometimes act like there wasn't like bad things, war crimes and the like happening during World War II, which there definitely was. But oftentimes when you have this clashing of ideals and the like with the Vietnam War and World War II, it's almost like a justification, and therefore the justification is a preservation of the post-war consensus. And with Vietnam, because that war is lost and there's so much opposing sentiment built around it, it's allowed to not really have another side to it. Hank Marlowe, my favorite. I don't like him as a character precisely for what he represents. I think he's entertaining. Then why do you do this to me? Because I hate you. No, it's almost midnight. Yes, well, it's almost midnight for me too. I wanted to do the upload schedule. I have no other time to do this, Black. I am sorry, but I appreciate you coming on regardless, though.
Okay, so a pretty clear critical allegory about Vietnam and military intervention. How did the DoD react to that? Did they roll out the aircraft carriers again?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Because of that critical allegory, because it depicted military actions in a negative light, potentially mirroring controversial aspects of Vietnam, the DoD reportedly withheld support entirely from Kong, Skull Island.
So that shows their red lines are real. Critique Vietnam, no access.
Exactly.
Well, again, there's other films that critique Vietnam, and again, no access. Okay, cool. They still made a good film regardless, so that doesn't mean anything, but I'm just curious. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Let me stop sharing. I just want to pull. Where is this? SEAL name is credited. So apparently, a Navy SEAL by the name of Kevin Kent provided technical expertise on the film, and a U.S. Army helicopter squadron and military equipment were heavily featured in the film. And reference the film to adjacent awareness for the production. Release later. The problem I also have with this film is that there's a lot of things that are said, but there's like no sources provided. So you just have to take whatever they say at face value. Let's see. Miranda. There's at least a few sources that are coming up that I want to find, but let me see. And it's the same problem that we have with 05 on the debate, where it's like you're making these assertions without like giving any kind of sources to this. Export. To DoD sports. Now, at least what comes up here is simply just what is ostensibly a synopsis of the film. Which, again, we could be completely wrong here. I just wish that anytime you see something where military forum. Oh, there's a military forum going all right. Okay. Yeah, so that's probably where the support, or at least what they're talking about, is. So I'll just show up this, not quote, but at least this thing right here. This is at least where we're getting about a guy supposedly by the name of Kevin Kent. Let's at least pull him up. If I can go back to this. Kevin, Navy SEAL. So this guy's an actor. Yeah, so at least, yeah, he's actor Navy SEAL. Let's see if his IMDb page brings this up. Additional credits, stunts actor. Oh yeah, no, there he is. So he's credited as a military advisor. So yeah, no, even if the DoD specifically is not there as a like support for a film, you do have people who are in the military or were in the military who are providing support for these things. Speaking of which, it's interesting. So he was there for Transformers last night. Tomorrow War, which I saw a little bit of, is okay. Jack Ryan, that's okay. I wish it was more like, it's cool that we have a seal for advising that. For Walking Dead, The Old Man, Fast X. But so he's just a technical advisor for that. That's interesting. But also Black. Speaking of, you were like sleeping for this film when we did show it. So maybe if we'd gone through this film already, I wouldn't be doing this to you, and it would be midnight while you're having to deal with this. So this is your fault.
Exactly. It demonstrates the limits. If the script doesn't spit shine the image, if it engages in critique, especially of a sensitive war like Vietnam, the cooperation stops.
But interestingly,
Yeah.
someone else did support the film, right?
Yes, and this is fascinating. While the US military stepped back, the film received colossal support from the Vietnamese government, including the Vietnamese army.
Wow. So the country it was allegorically about gave them support.
Huge support. Access to incredible locations, logistics. It highlights a
I don't even think that did it even film in Vietnam? Because I think it like only filmed in like Hawaii and Australia and the like. That I could be cooler. I could be wrong on. Oh no, so it was. That's me just being completely wrong, but it is places outside of Vietnam. So it did include Australia, but also Vietnam. My bad. That's I will admit that.
completely different political dynamic. Vietnam perhaps saw an opportunity to showcase its landscape, maybe even its own perspective, through this Hollywood lens.
That's a wild turnaround. Has King Kong always had this kind of complicated relationship with military portrayals, even way back?
There's a history there, yeah, even if less formal. The original 1933 King Kong producers wanted real planes for that iconic Empire State Building scene.
The biplanes attacking Kong.
Exactly, they wanted
Yeah, that's because Baron C. Cooper could fly them. That's why.
real U.S. Navy planes. Initially got turned down, but apparently they convinced a local naval air station commander to send 4 planes anyway. So early informal cooperation happened.
Just because it looks cool?
Again, Baron C. Cooper was in the military. Let's just go up Baron C. Cooper's military career. Yeah, because he literally fought in World War I as a pilot. That's probably why he wanted the planes. And I think he's also one of the pilots you see in the original King Kong. But yeah, so he had a lengthy military career, including Georgian National Guard, U.S. Air Service, Polish Air Force, and later re-enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps in 1941 for World War II. So yeah, that's probably the main reason why. And I'm curious, what thing are you waiting for, Mark? I'm curious if you think the same thing I'm probably thinking of, but it's probably not the case. I could be totally wrong.
Presumably.
Pretty much. Recognizing the value of authentic military visuals.
What about the 70s remake? That was closer to the Vietnam era. Did the DoD get involved then?
They did. The Air Force provided jets for attack on King Kong in the 1976 version, but, and this is key, not without conditions. Big ones.
What kind of conditions?
The DoD insisted on script changes. For example, they absolutely did not want flamethrowers used against Kong.
Why flamethrowers?
Because it directly mirrored their controversial use in Vietnam. They were terrified. Audiences would see the military as vicious bullies or turn against them for killing a giant animal in such a brutal way.
So they wanted a cleaner kill.
Essentially. They suggested adding dialogue about trying tranquilizers first, portraying a more measured, humane approach before lethal force. They also objected to other things, like scenes suggesting bribery at the White House or National Guardsmen firing on looters, always protecting the image, avoid corruption, avoid excessive force against civilians or even.
Yeah, that's probably because in most cases people don't want to commit excessive force against random civilians. And as for flamethrowers as well, yeah, it was controversial in Vietnam, and they used flamethrowers in World War II. And because you don't really see it in World War II, people don't really bring that to like the light as well. So there's that. That's like one thing where you see about Vietnam with how televised it is what's adding to the image of it being so brutal, but also Americans and like the public as a whole at home really seeing the actual effects of war.
Even giant apes.
All right, so after Kong, Skull Island went critical and the DoD backed off. What happened next? Did things stay frosty with Godzilla, King of the Monsters in 2019, or did the pendulum swing back?
It definitely seems like the pendulum started swinging back towards those military-friendly themes, especially the nuclear stuff.
How so?
King of the Monsters really doubled down on that reframing of nuclear power we saw in 2014. It went even further. It actually portrays radiation in general as a life force, almost mystical, essential for the Titans.
Radiation is good.
Basically, yeah. And the most glaring example is that big scene where they deliberately detonate a nuclear bomb to revive Godzilla, to power him up.
Right, I remember that. So again, the nuke saves the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, the nuke doesn't save the day. It's literally the. Oh wait, I think I know. That's exactly what Minecraft was thinking of. Oh wait, no, it wasn't that. Okay, no, you're thinking of the Kong is slavery thing. No, I was thinking that you were thinking as a big Cottom guy that they were gonna bring up the fact that nukes saved the day in Cottom, which again, because of the military's brass actions, they almost kill their savior. So like in a situation where they need to power Godzilla up with radiation, something we know for a fact he explicitly feeds on since 1984, they have to use something that's actually portable, like a nuke, because they're not just gonna have random nuclear like facilities or a mini nuclear reactor there to power them up. So yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, I was hoping they went nah with a video like this. You know they would have. Come on.
Nuclear weapon saves the day. It solidifies that trope, making the bomb a heroic tool, completely inverting Godzilla's original meaning as a warning against nukes.
So did
Yeah, the original Godzilla's warning against nukes when Godzilla allegorically stops being about nukes and becomes a hero to humanity, which is a like characterization where he goes from like kind of hating humanity to then just being like whatever, protecting them here and there, to then just being an out and out superhero. And Godzilla loses his meaning, but if we were to say like Godzilla, that's the same second generation Godzilla, which is a product of nuclear weapons. So yes, nuclear weapons created a monster that became our superhero. So yes, from even the Showa era, inadvertently becomes Nuke Save the Day by this logic.
the DoD embrace this one? Were they back on board after the Skull Island critique?
It's a little ambiguous. Some sources suggest the DoD might have still withheld full official support for King of the Monsters.
Why? If it was pro-nuke again?
Well, maybe some lingering hesitation after Skull Island, but also there's that scene, you remember, where the fighter pilots eject?
Oh yeah, right into the monster's mouth. Ghidorah, wasn't it?
Yeah, visually spectacular.
No, that's even wrong. It's not Ghidorah. It's Rodan.
You remember where the fighter pilots eject?
Oh yeah, right into the monster's mouth. Ghidorah, wasn't it?
Yeah, visually spectacular, but maybe not the image the military wants their pilots getting instantly chomped. One source suggested the DoD might have found that depiction hard to swallow because it violates their rule about showing the military as effective, not just monster chow.
Well, again, there's so many instances of military dying in like alien invasion films and things like that. Like that is such a huge leap. I'm gonna have to press X to doubt on that. X to doubt in chat, guys. There was a part of me that was begging you would be just 2014 and Skull Island. Nope. No, you have to deal with this. You have to deal with the fact that your film, your favorite MonsterVerse film, is being ripped apart by political activists. It's just wrong. It's so wrong.
Okay, so maybe still some friction there.
Mhm.
But by the time we get to Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021, things are fully patched up.
Oh yeah, the relationship is confirmed to be fully back on in Godzilla vs. Kong, no question.
How do we see that in the film?
The Pentagon is shown explicitly working side by side with Monarch, the monster track.
Wait, that they've been explicitly working with Monarch since 2014, a film that you criticized for its military involvement.
Group. They're partners again.
Even though a whole Navy fleet gets wiped out in that big ocean battle.
Exactly. A US
So wouldn't that contradict the thing you just said about like the DoD being hesitant because they saw their soldiers being monster chow?
Navy carrier strike group gets absolutely demolished by Godzilla and Kong fighting. Huge loss of hardware and presumably lives. But the narrative barely pauses. It immediately pivots to emphasize that like sacrifice is not in vain.
And the military is still crucial after that.
Totally. They immediately show the military playing a crucial role transporting Kong. You see those huge helicopters, the MV-22 Ospreys lifting him. It reinforces their resilience, their necessity, their effectiveness. Even after taking massive losses, they're still the indispensable force.
It sounds like it fits perfectly back into those DoD rules of engagement we talked about, the core demands.
It does.
The DoD rules of engagement. I never want to see someone use the term rules of engagement and not like properly understand what goes into that term.
The consistent demand. The military must be shown as heroic, tough, and effective. Brave, competent, good gear, but also...
Wait, let's go back. Let's go back. Wait.
It sounds like it fits perfectly back into those DoD rules of engagement we talked about, the core demands.
It does. The consistent demand. The military must be shown as heroic.
Sure, if we say like we see so many of them die, at least heroically. So let's say check.
Tough and effective.
Tough, they get absolutely devastated, so they aren't really that tough since they're proven to be ineffective against like any monster. And as for effective, the effective part is that they set off the death charges in order to stop Kong from dying, so they're effective at saving Kong. So I guess check if you really want to squint. But had the military had a direct engagement with Godzilla, they'd lose, which you see in the film when Godzilla attacks the Apex facility. And then we also see that after Kong resurfaces, the only way they're able to escape is because the military chimps out. And that's not where I were, because they aren't like freaking out. So yeah, no, they just essentially bowed down to Godzilla ostensibly by turning off the lights. So yeah, the military isn't shown to be all that tough, but I guess effective. So 2.5 out of 3, I'll give that.
Brave, competent, good gear, but also not too brutal, not just murdering innocents.
And not shown as totally incompetent.
What?
Core demands.
It does. The consistent demand. The military must be shown as heroic, tough, and effective. Brave, competent, good gear, but also not too brutal, not just murdering innocents.
Where in Godzilla versus Kong would you have the military be shown to kind of murder civilians? Because the only people that we see who are possibly about to murder an innocent are working for Apex. That's not the military. And it's also, again, Apex who unleashes Mechagodzilla. It's not the military. Where in Godzilla versus Kong would they even attempt to show an example of murdering innocents that has nothing to do with the film? That has nothing to do with the film at all.
And not shown as totally incompetent either.
Right. That Rampage example, the Dwayne Johnson movie with the giant animals, illustrates it perfectly. The Army apparently rejected supporting it because the script had nearly all Army National Guard personnel and equipment were killed or destroyed with no chance of success in their missions.
They don't want to look completely useless.
Exactly. It undermines public confidence. Bad for recruitment. They need to look capable even against giant monsters.
So it seems like even when the DoD isn't directly funding or rewriting every line, there's this underlying tendency in Hollywood anyway, this general reverence for the military.
That's a huge part of it. It's symbiotic. Studios get the...
Yeah, because the military is made out of people, and those people may not be perfect, but all in all, people who are working for the military are doing so because they want to help people. Like it's really weird how much they take the military, which is very much tries to break you down to be part of a whole, not just an individual, and then treats them like a whole and says that they're all awful. Now I want Supernova to pull some Baver shit with the military. Yes, I want Supernova to be military slop, so nothing but military equipment. Godzilla needs the help of the United States military, so like he'll get like 8-10 warthogs on his arms, and he'll be like brr brr to fight off against like some aliens who are clearly stand-ins for the communists. So we'll just go right back to the 50s and the 60s. Yeah, that's exactly what I want now.
Cool shots, the savings, a couple $1 million, the production value. The military gets the PR, the recruitment boost.
Like that commentator said, it's cheap PR for them.
Exactly. Any avenue that allows it to do it cheaply, like 100 million people watching a pro-military Godzilla film, will be used. It's not always a top-down mandate. It's often this largely decentralized natural phenomenon, an institutional bias, an incentive structure that just keeps churning out these kinds of narratives.
Okay, so we've really traced how the U.S. military has its fingerprints all over the monsterverse. Script changes, access, reframing history. But let's pull back. Why does this actually matter to you, listening at home? What are the bigger implications of the DoD acting as this sieve for popular culture?
That sieve concept is key. The DoD's Entertainment Liaison Office is constantly reviewing scripts, giving notes, acting as this constant sieve to make sure nothing controversial gets through, nothing that makes them look like they're bad guys.
It's not just editing, it's filtering.
Except for the fact that if you don't agree with the DoD, you won't get the support, but you'd still probably be able to make your movie.
It's a filtration system, yeah. Proactive image control. Making sure the public sees the military in the way they want it seen, aligning with strategic goals, even if that means changing history or smoothing over difficult topics.
And one of the biggest things getting filtered out consistently is that history around Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Why is that such a non-negotiable taboo for them?
It's one of their strictest rules. Sources say it's an absolute no-go. No direct mention, no critical depictions of the bombings. Why? To keep a lid on what they see as a massive historical controversy.
The debate over whether the bombs were necessary.
Exactly. Was Japan already trying to surrender? Was it more about sending a message to the Soviets? They don't want those questions asked. The fear, as critics put it, is that even a tiny mention could let smarty pants journalists, or just curious viewers, start pulling the thread, start to unravel the whole thread, the whole tangle of lies that is the United States foreign policy.
Yeah, so essentially the point that they're making is that, yes, whatever the United States military or the foreign policy is telling you is totally a lie. And if you just were given a sliver of the truth, you'd be able to realize that's all a lie, when in reality, it's just another bias that other people are giving. And as a result, it's just a war of ideologies rather than a search for the objective truth. Could it have been a message to the Soviets? Possible. Was Japan trying to surrender? Yes, some people in the Japanese government were trying to surrender. That's not the whole truth. And for a video or a channel, by extension, who is trying to talk about these nuanced discussions, being so black and white about this topic is interesting to say the least.
So the goal is to make it ahistorical.
Prevent people even thinking about history critically, keep the official story intact.
And this connects to a longer pattern, doesn't it? This sort of pro-bomb messaging.
Absolutely. This isn't new. Since the dawn of the atomic age, there's been a concerted effort to publicize the power of the nuclear bomb as a good thing.
Like that secret Air Force film studio.
Lookout Mountain, yeah. From the 40s to the 60s, they made films, controlled test footage, shaped how the bomb was presented, always emphasizing the awesome power. It's about projecting power through nuclear weapons.
But crucially, not showing the consequences.
Deliberately avoiding the impacts of that, avoiding the actual victims, human or environmental. Because if you show that, people might start to feel things. They might engage in critical thinking. They might question the morality, the necessity. It's power projection without the messy reality check.
Which brings us right back to Chomsky's manufacture of consent. These movies, even subtly, are doing that work.
That's the argument. It's not necessarily active behind-the-scenes collusion on every film, but it's incredibly effective soft power.
Yeah.
It normalizes militarism. It glorifies American exceptionalism. It implicitly backs up arguments for those escalating annual defense budgets. You mentioned $850 billion for 2025.
It makes that spending seem necessary, even heroic.
Right. And it subtly compels the public, as one analysis puts it, to provide a subsidy to high technology industry, the military-industrial complex, without us even thinking about the ideology we're absorbing with our popcorn.
And it's also a distraction.
So the biggest problem I also have with this is considering in the last couple of years, the idea that, they're just trying to justify the defense budgets when for a while there was so much moralizing about sending support to foreign wars and ultimately forgetting about the fact that, like, yeah, that defense budget would be put into us supporting and actively putting troops on the ground for these foreign wars. And it's not going to be these people. It's not going to be them. Like, I'd assume that, I think it's a guy who runs this. He's like, what, in his like late 30s, early 40s? It's not going to be him. If there was a draft, it's not going to be him who's going to be put on the front lines. It's going to be us. Like, obviously I'm in like my mid 20s now, but like me, people younger than me, it's not, if like a war or something dreadful like this is gonna like break out, it's not gonna be people like that who are gonna experience that horror firsthand that they say these films don't show. It's gonna be us. And as someone who has no interest in being drafted to the front lines to experience something like that, not for cowardice or any other silly reason like that, it's just like, I think a lot of us understand the horrors of war well enough. And this one-sided bias moralizing does nothing but, like, it does kind of piss me off. Not gonna lie.
Action, right? Focusing on monsters instead of real wars.
A huge distraction. These films show the U.S. military fighting sea monsters or aliens, clear-cut non-human enemies rather than actual human beings in real, complex, morally gray conflicts like Iraq or Afghanistan.
It hides the messiness.
But yeah, because they aren't representative of Iraq or Afghanistan in these cases. It's monsters. There is nothing wrong with escapism.
It's the profit motives that feed many wars and distracts from their real consequences, the casualties, the trauma, the geopolitical fallout. So when you go for escapism, you might actually be consuming military stories scripted and shaped by the Pentagon's own public affairs officers. It's a form of propaganda, even if it doesn't feel like it.
And the ultimate result of all this, for Godzilla himself,
Yeah.
he's completely transformed from warning to weapon.
It's the ultimate irony. The American monsterverse has taken Godzilla, this walking, roaring warning against nuclear annihilation and military excess, the symbol of trauma, and turned him into essentially a sixth branch of the U.S. military.
His nuclear origins are just backstory.
You mean turning him into a superhero like the Showa era that everyone wants the MonsterVerse to be?
For his powers now.
Pretty much. Justification for him being able to shoot lasers. Meanwhile, Japanese Godzilla films often still engage with politics, with anti-war themes, with current anxieties, but the American series...
Yeah, really in the Reiwa era now. Like, what's that to say about, like, Gigan, Megalon, Mechagodzilla, Terra Mechagodzilla, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster, kind of. Megalon, kind of, but not as much. Destroy Monsters, not really. Invasion of Astro Monster, Get Over the Three-Headed Monster, Godzilla versus or Mothra versus Godzilla. Same thing can be said with the Heisei era, some of the Millennium era. Like, if we were to argue that Monster vs. Godzilla dilutes Godzilla's meaning, so too do many of the Japanese films.
Rarely, if ever, tackles real-life issues with that kind of depth.
They become more like expensive fan films.
That's the critique. Never more than simple guilty pleasures. The form is there, the giant monster, the destruction, but the original soul, the powerful political core, is arguably lost. American Godzilla has the form, but lacks the soul. Hashtag outro.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for us, for you watching these movies? We've gone deep into the MonsterVerse from Godzilla 2014 right through the latest clashes and seen just how consistently the U.S. military's influence is woven in.
Yeah, from direct script changes, censor...
This also was 2025. New Empire came out by then. I'm just really bad with dates today, apparently. Yeah, 2024. So they didn't even bring up New Empire at all.
History, giving access to carriers and jets, to just promoting certain narratives. These huge blockbusters are way more than just monster mashups. They're cultural objects carrying embedded messages.
And understanding that influence, it's actually pretty crucial, wouldn't you say?
It really is, because it empowers you as a viewer. You can still enjoy the spectacle, the fun, but you can watch with a more critical eye. You can start to recognize the deliberate choices being made, choices designed to shape how you see the military, how you think about history, even how you feel about nuclear power.
It helps you sort out the pure storytelling from the parts that might be serving, well, another agenda, normalizing militarism, maybe sanitizing the past.
Exactly. Distinguishing entertainment from subtle ideology.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If powerful art that lasts, is often political, what does it say about our culture right now that even our biggest, most escapist monster movies are so tangled up with military narratives? Narratives that often clean up history and push an ideology of power.
And what responsibility do we have as people who consume this stuff, who hopefully are now a bit more informed? Do we challenge it? Do we just accept?
I wasn't informed. If anything, this is propaganda in and of itself, just for a like the opposition.
How do we engage with these subtle messages?
Definitely something to chew on next time you see Godzilla roar or Kong beat his chest on screen.
Yeah.
What's really going on beneath the spectacle?
And hey, look who's being advertised. Why I thought we had finished addressing this BS. Yeah, what is happening? Yeah, no, you missed a little bit. If we were all in a platoon, would we stand a chance? It really is one of those dark humor bits where it's like, if we all get drafted up into a war, we all end up in the same unit. What's gonna happen? It's like, Control, we have an issue. Say again, the 77th Infantry Division, they ain't fighting. Why is that? They're all YouTubers, I heard, and they're all watching Godzilla movies. LT, you don't understand. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about Godzilla. We need to respond. What is this? Some kind of little platoon? Korea's that's the best comments of the night. Minecraft, if you're doing an animatic, there's a little animatic of me reading that. What is this? Some kind of little platoon. That'd be perfect. But there's an 8-minute one which will go by really, really quickly. I bet it just covers the exact same thing. So this one we'll do is YouTubers on speed. And then we'll do the AI Godzilla picture as the last thing we'll show for the end of the night. So this one is Godzilla monster or military asset, which I think this is all exactly the same. So Well, you said 2 times speed.
Think of Godzilla, you think of the roar, right? The city stomping, the pure destruction. But what if I told you there are really 2 Godzillas? One is this terrifying symbol of nuclear war, and the other? Well, the other is basically a US military asset. And the story of how that monster became a partner, that's the real story we're diving into. And trust me, it's wilder than any on-screen kaiju fight. It seems like a pretty basic question, doesn't it? But the answer completely depends on which movie you're watching, and maybe more importantly, where it was made. Is Godzilla a punishment for humanity's hubris with the atom bomb, or is he some kind of planetary protector who just happens to team up with the US Navy?
So switch the US Navy out to a giant robot, and you have Godzilla versus Megalon. So does that mean we have 3 Godzillas? Because there's early Showa, kind of mid Showa, then late Showa Godzilla, early and late Heisei, all the different Millennium Godzillas, and then all the different Reiwa Godzillas. So there isn't just 2 Godzillas.
Easiest part is he's been both. And this really gets to the heart of it. It's like he has this massive identity crisis. On one hand, you've got the original, a walking, breathing symbol of atomic terror, a monster literally born from our worst.
Yeah, so a walking metaphor for the atomic bomb, a punishment for man's hubris. So yeah, Godzilla 54, a misunderstood superhero who fights alongside the military to protect the Earth. Misunderstood, so I guess we could say Invasion of Astro Monster, Godzilla versus Gigan, Megalon, Terror Mecha Godzilla.
Worst mistakes. But on the other hand, he's become something else entirely, a kind of living superweapon.
Again, going back.
Atomic terror, a monster literally born from our worst mistakes. But on the other hand, he's become something else.
We have the thing being cut off again for some reason here and here.
Entirely, a kind of living superweapon, a partner to the military. To really understand how deep this change goes, we have to go back, way back. We're talking 1950s Japan, a country that was still living in the very real, very recent shadow of the atomic bomb. See, the original Godzilla wasn't just some random monster movie idea cooked up in a boardroom. It was forged in the atomic anxiety of a nation that knew nuclear devastation firsthand. You had the bombings in 1945, of course, but then in March of 1954, a US hydrogen bomb test irradiated a Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon No. 5. This was a fresh, terrifying reminder. And just a few months later, Gojira hits theaters. The timing is no accident. And this is just so key to understanding the original film. The director, Ishiro Honda, he was a pacifist, and he'd actually passed through the ruins of Hiroshima after the war. For him, this wasn't just entertainment. This was his chance to pour all the trauma he'd witnessed, all his anti-war feelings, directly onto the screen. So the first Godzilla movie, it's a horror film. Full stop. He was a punishment, a consequence. His skin was deliberately designed to look like the keloid scars of atomic bomb survivors. And
again, not deliberately, but okay.
In that movie, the military isn't heroic. They're totally helpless. The movie doesn't end with some big victory. It ends with a really chilling warning. As long as humanity has nuclear weapons, another Godzilla is always a possibility. Okay, now let's fast forward 60 years. We're jumping to the American reboot, the movie that kicked off the modern monsterverse. And we're about to see how this monster got a complete and total rebuild, starting with a very different kind of partnership. So
it's also interesting that they exclude 98, and this is me, I can't believe I have to run some kind of defense for 98. But yeah, 98 does show the military as pretty incompetent. This is during like the 90s, which is considered like that big time for like military expansionism, Jingoism, things like that.
When Hollywood decided to reboot Godzilla in 2014, they knew they didn't just need CGI. They needed real military hardware. You know, aircraft carriers, destroyers, the whole deal. And the US Department of Defense saw this as a golden opportunity. And it wasn't just about lending out some cool props, it was a chance to shape the story and reach a very specific audience. So who was that audience? Well, according to the Pentagon officials who worked on the film, they were laser focused on 14 to 18-year-olds. They saw this massive blockbuster movie as a perfect vehicle to show off the Navy as this sophisticated, professional organization to a whole new generation of potential recruits. So what you get is this powerful, you could say,
wait,
it wasn't just about lending out some cool props, it was a chance to shape the story and reach a very specific audience. So who was that audience? Well, according to the Pentagon officials who worked on the film, they were laser focused on 14 to 18-year-olds. They saw this massive blockbuster movie as a perfect vehicle to show off the Navy as this sophisticated, professional organization to a whole new generation of potential recruits.
Work roots! Work roots! There's potential work roots. I would love potential work roots. Just remember, had you let me finish this video, you wouldn't be bored now. So this is your fault. I blame you for this. Is this person trying to make a point that Godzilla is used to recruit soldiers? What? You can't be joking. The last thing I want to do is join the military, and these films never make me want to. No, you see, they do that because, like, you're obviously enlightened. You know what's going on. So therefore, the propaganda can't work on you, Javara. That is true. But again, hey, you said you're bored. So, wump bum 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 bow.
So what you get is this powerful, you could say, symbiotic relationship. The filmmakers get access to billions of dollars worth of real military gear, ships, helicopters, even personnel as extras, which gives their movie a ton of production value and perceived realism. And what does the Pentagon get for all this? Script oversight. The power to make sure the military looks competent, heroic, and absolutely essential to saving the day. So how does that oversight actually look? Well, here's a perfect example. In an early draft of the script, the bad guy monster, the Mudo, steals an American nuclear weapon. That was a hard no from the military. So in the final movie, the one the Pentagon signed off on, the monster just so happens to steal a Russian nuke instead. And maybe...
What about the nukes that they're transporting on the train, though? Like, they steal, like, the Russian subs nukes, but then they still steal American nukes.
From the military. So in the final movie, the one the Pentagon signed off on, the monster just so happens to steal a Russian nuke instead. And maybe even more telling is this. There was a scene where the Japanese scientist character, Dr. Serizawa, was supposed to talk about his father being a survivor of the Hiroshima bombing. It was cut. The reason? The producers called it a showstopper, which was based
Again, it's still talked about. Is it less? Is it not as like big as it probably was in the original script? Sure, but still there.
basically code for the military liaison saying absolutely not. Any direct reference to the ugly, real-world history of the atom bomb, especially America's role, had to go. And look, this deal with Godzilla wasn't some one-time thing. It's actually part of a much bigger, much more systematic relationship between the Department of Defense and Hollywood that's been going on for decades. The linguist Noam Chomsky actually has a name for this kind of thing: manufacturing consent.
Yeah, so wouldn't this propaganda is to a democracy what violence is to a dictatorship? So wouldn't what you're saying, which in so many cases is wrong, be a form of propaganda to whatever agenda it is that you're pushing?
The idea is pretty simple, really. In a democracy, you can't just force people to support your policies. So instead, you have to shape their opinions. And if you embed your message in something really popular, like a Godzilla movie, you can build support for, say, military spending without it ever feeling like you're watching propaganda. So if you're a filmmaker and you want
And let's go back.
something popular, like a Godzilla movie, you can build support for, say, military spending without it ever feeling like you're watching propaganda. So
I'll just stop right there because I'm just going so fast.
without it ever feeling like you're watching propaganda.
Propaganda. Good old propaganda. This person's video is visually the worst Godzilla take I've ever seen. No, Something Productions is still worse. Other military platoons. Watch your six ladies. We got bogeys. Us. Zim, how much can I worsen until I become horse? Oh my goodness. No. I will call a danger close air mission on your head if you were ever under my command and you say this to me. Be like, all right, I'm calling in a fire mission, sir. Isn't that danger close on Kuru? Did I stutter? Something productive and who were worse in every way. Yeah, no, they were definitely worse.
So if you're a filmmaker and you want access to all those shiny jets and aircraft carriers, you've got to play by their rules. And the DoD's rules are very, very clear. Your movie has to show a positive, reasonably realistic military.
Yeah, reasonably realistic. So wait, getting upset that I can't show you as overt evil satanic baby killers. Man, the military is so awful for not letting me do this.
To help with recruitment. And here's the kicker: the Pentagon gets final say on the script. You can really see this playbook in action when you just look at the movies that get support versus the ones that get rejected. Big pro-military blockbusters like Top Gun, Transformers, they get the full red carpet treatment. But films that show
So we have rejected films, them still considered a classic. Crimson Tide, again, considered a classic. Jarhead, which I do recommend. That is a very good film. Even though they rejected it, is a very good film. Independence Day. I do not even. Independence Day is okay. It's such a standard alien invasion movie, which just says a lot about how much Emmerich hated the kaiju genre. Top Gun, good film. Transformers, okay. Man of Steel, okay. 2014, okay. Which again, wow. So like, even by the metric that you're presenting to me, it's like these really cool films were done without direct support from the DoD, and they still turned out fine. Especially Jarhead, which is very close in some ways to Generation Kill. But what's interesting is that them got rejected, and I wonder if The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was also rejected. I bet there's no way to even tell in that case unless like someone directly stated it.
military incompetence like Independence Day, or films about mutiny like Crimson Tide. Nope, support denied. This just shows you how flexible that realism role is. The movie Jarhead was based on a real Marine's own book, his memoir, but because it showed some of the ugly, psychologically damaging parts of war, the Pentagon refused to cooperate. So it seems realism is only a requirement when it's the right kind of realism. And you gotta understand, this is a massive, massive operation. We're talking about official support for over 2,500 movies and TV shows over the years. This isn't just a casual thing. It is a vast institutional system designed to shape how we all see the military in our most popular stories. So this brings everything.
Yeah, but you just showed an even split, so that means the DoD is not always involved in like every military film, which means there's other forms of media that's being presented that is not being blocked by the DoD.
Full circle, right back to Godzilla. And it leaves us with a pretty important question to think about as an audience. What we've seen here is a total ideological flip. I mean, the character who's
Original Godzilla, not including like the Late Show era, is this, and American Godzilla is this. Which again, yes, we're heading back into the Cottom Nuke Save the Day meta, and this came out 2 months ago.
as a warning against nuclear weapons, and the futility of military power has been completely transformed. In the American Monsterverse, a nuclear bomb is literally used to revive Godzilla, and he fights side by side with the very same military forces that the original film showed to be totally useless. And for a lot of critics,
except for the fact that the Americans are never shown in the original film. And Godzilla never fights a monster in the original film either.
Isn't just some innocent story choice. The argument is that by partnering so closely with the Pentagon, these new movies have basically changed the entire message of the franchise, from an anti-war story into a huge, loud promotion of American military might. So why does any of this matter? Well, the real-world impact is pretty huge. It completely blurs the line between a fun summer blockbuster and a military recruitment ad. It cleans up or just erases difficult parts of history for a global audience, and it helps manufacture consent for massive military budgets by making constant conflict seem necessary, heroic, and frankly, kind of cool. It just leaves you with this one last question. The next time you're watching a giant monster movie and you see all those fighter jets and aircraft carriers perfectly framing the shot, it's worth asking yourself, are you just watching a movie, or are you watching what might be the most expensive and entertaining military advertisement ever made?
I want to join the military. I want to join a private military corporation. I want to make money. There you go. That's my little send off on it. Like, it's so funny how videos like this talk about how bad propaganda is and then inevitably become propaganda in and of themselves. Oh, wait, the debate yesterday. I swear, if I ever come across anything like this for Gamer, I will flip my lid. Oh, that's what you're referencing. I thought you were talking about the fact that I am so tired. I thought you said the debate's tomorrow, but no, that debate that you're going to be on is on Friday, which I can't wait to listen to. I don't get how a nuke being used on Godzilla to revive him would make me want to join the military. Well, you see, you don't understand the meta-contextual analysis of what's going on. Like, you just don't understand. But let's just end off with the AI Godzilla piece, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So this is it right here. It definitely looks like AI. Like, again, I mentioned this early in the stream. It looks like just how light reflects with images. It says it all. And like even some people's art styles look like this, but for a piece like you have 4 fingers, although like yeah, really he doesn't have his fingers, I think, are shorter here, but it may just be because it's curled. Let me see if I can zoom in. No, it's not gonna let me. Okay. But it looks like his claw here is missing, but it could be bent into the finger here. The head's cool. The spines are cool. The legs are nice. Like, this is a lot of people like always talk about how the Ride Godzilla in -1 is like a fusion of like Heisei and Monsterverse. This feels like Heisei shape, kind of Showa or Heisei spines with Monsterverse textures over it. Like, it's a good design. Like, it's not overtly bad. Like, I bet the prompts that went into making this to make it look as good as it is was extensive, because very, very rarely you're gonna get a design that looks as good. I'd say like one thing is that right here you have these are the middle spines and then they dip here. So like this part of the tail looks a bit unnatural. But like overall, this is a very good piece. There's just small details that like make me think, oh, this is clearly AI. But it's not that bad. Yeah, probably used a lot of prompts. Probably maybe it's Sora 2. Hey, say supremacy. It looks like Death Battle Godzilla mixed with Gem. So what was it? Death Battle Godzilla? Oh, you're talking about the one from Gamera, I assume, because the Hulk one was Ultima. Yeah, the proportions are fine. I'm out. I'm going to watch Superman for the debate Friday. Have fun, my man. Thank you for coming on as always, Kuru. What's the content? So, like, we were talking about AI and whether it's good or bad earlier, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. But like, yeah, it's not bad. And like, it's just serviceable. Like, it'd be cool to maybe see someone refine this design, but like, someone clearly just made this for fun. Like, even looking at it, like he says, yeah, this new species of Godzilla actually is based on the image sketch that Photon drew. So it's based off of someone else's drawing, and I gave a lot of instructions to complete it. It became Photon version Godzilla. Looking at this, I realize I like my Godzilla to be modest in personality and orthodox. Yeah, no, maybe that's why I like it so much, because I like a more orthodox or traditional Godzilla. Oh, by the way, the composition is still done by hand as always. I remember, I forget who it was. It was some loser who was like, "Oh, I don't want none of y'all supporting this because it's got AI." So yes, apparently I just want to stop this just in case, because I don't follow this guy, so I don't know whether or not he whether he likes certain things. Like I always am wary anytime I'm gonna like Twitter or DeviantArt. Yeah, no, let's just go through it. Let me share screen just to end it off. And why I don't mind sharing people's names, it's because if you want to publicly say this, then there's no problem with someone like publicly blasting you this. Guys, this is AI. Again, as he says, the composition is done by hand, so I think either he or someone else did the composition. What the fuck is this piece of shit? Me already, like, yeah, cool. Really? It was this one, this design. It was this person here. Yeah, there's like a mix of positive. Wonderful. So yeah, not too many people going over it. Like, this is so inoffensive. Like, really? It's like, whatever, man. Is it official? Just fan? It's fan made. Yeah. But that's gonna be it for tonight. I wanted to make sure that I finally got to this, because if there's one thing I never really want to do, it's I don't want to DNF something. Like, I remember we never got to do the entire King Kong the Black Gorilla college, that whole paper. We have not finished that, and that always gnaws at me, just because of the fact that the stream got taken down because I wanted to show clips that actually directly contradicted the paper in question. So maybe one day when I have time, we will go back to it. But yeah, in this case, this video is interesting. If you're going to use AI, tighten up your subtitles so that they actually match. And if you care so much about the authenticity of things like the original Godzilla, just get the names right, please. But that's all the time we have for today, guys. It's midnight where I am. I thank the people on YouTube for watching. The one lone person on Twitch, I respect you. I pay for StreamYard to multi-stream for you alone. I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night. And as always,
Semper Fi, motherfucker.